of work, I didn't exactly know how he was going to sound. And I had just I had been thinking about it and hoping that something would come.
He was once the first black superhero to conquer Hollywood, paving the way for the entire Marvel empire, turning Blade into a historic milestone. Wesley Snipes, a name that once shook Hollywood. But behind that dazzling spotlight was a terrifying darkness. A man who once stood at the peak of fame worth tens of millions of dollars suddenly became a federal inmate drowning in debt. His reputation collapsed. His fortune vanished. All of Hollywood turned its back. And when everyone thought the name Wesley Snipes had been erased from Hollywood forever, he came back. An unexpected explosive comeback that made the whole world shout, "Blade is back!" This is not just the story of a star. This is the journey from light to abyss, from sinner to legend. A story you won't be able to look away from. No legend is born out of nothing. Neither was Wesley Snipes. Before holding the silver sword, he once held the broken dreams of a child from the Bronx. It was that turbulent childhood that forged him into a star. 1962, Orlando, Florida. Wesley Trent was born on July 31st. But his short childhood there ended quickly. His family moved him to a place far harsher. South Bronx, New York, a land of poverty, violence, and smoke. A place where dreams and nightmares blended into one. The Bronx back then wasn't the shiny apartment buildings we see on screen today. They were dark streets, police sirens beating like the background rhythm of life. There, Wesley grew up with his mother, Marion Long, a dedicated teacher's aide, and his father, Wesley Rudolph Snipes, an aircraft engineer. They were a small intellectual family trying to survive in a world ruled by gangs and poverty. From an early age, Wesley was different. He wasn't just a lively kid. He was obsessed with the stage, with the lights, with movement. While other children roamed the streets, Snipes practiced martial arts moves in a cramped room, imagining himself as a warrior facing the whole world. Martial arts became his escape, a discipline of steel that kept him away from the criminal path many of his peers had fallen into. As a teenager, he studied at the High School of Performing Arts, a prestigious school in Manhattan, cradle of many Broadway and Hollywood talents. But Snipes' journey was never smooth. His family was poor, life was tough, and the Bronx clung to him like a shadow. Wesley nurtured dreams while tasting a harsh reality, a poor black kid in a world that didn't welcome him. That adversity forged Snipes' character, strong, proud, determined, and sometimes impulsive. Wesley Snipes' childhood was a symphony of dreams and hardship. On one side, the dream of the stage, the lights of Broadway. On the other, the sound of police sirens, the darkness of the Bronx. And it was that violent collision that created the man he became, a blazing star, yet one who carried within him a darkness that could never be fully extinguished. A glorious career, from rookie to action king. He first stepped onto the screen in Wildcats 1986, a small role hardly anyone remembers. But those piercing eyes and that unmistakable presence caught the attention of directors. Then, as if by fate, Michael Jackson entered his life. In 1987, Snipes played the gang leader in the music video Bad. Just a few minutes on screen, but enough to make millions of viewers worldwide ask, "Who is this man?" That question soon found its answer. In 1991, Wesley exploded onto the scene as drug lord Nino Brown in New Jack City. The film cost only $8 million but grossed nearly $47 million, a massive hit. From a rising face, Wesley instantly became an A-list name. Major newspapers called him the blackface, challenging all of Hollywood. And indeed, he began to challenge Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Van Damme in the action arena. Then came Passenger 57, 1992, which cemented him as a true action star. The movie sold out theaters, grossing nearly $45 million in the US alone. From there, Snipes' paycheck skyrocketed from a few $100,000 to $5–7 million per film. He officially joined the ranks of the most expensive stars of 1990s Hollywood. At his peak, Wesley kept delivering blockbuster after blockbuster, Demolition Man 1993, going head-to-head with Sylvester Stallone. The film crushed the box office with $159 million worldwide. U.S. Marshals 1998, a spin-off of The Fugitive, raking in more than $102 million. Money Train 1995, alongside Woody Harrelson and Jennifer Lopez, further solidifying his star status. But all of that was just the prelude to the greatest moment of his career, Blade 1998. No one expected much from a superhero movie back then. Marvel was struggling with no MCU empire in sight, but Wesley turned it into legend. Cloaked in black, wielding a silver sword, Snipes became the coldest vampire hunter ever seen on screen. Global audiences went wild. Blade was made for $45 million but grossed $131 million, a stunning victory. Snipes earned $5 million plus a percentage of the profits, making him one of the highest-paid black actors in Hollywood at the time. It didn't stop there. Blade 2 2002 roared to $155 million, and Blade Trinity 2004 brought in another $131 million. Together, the trilogy delivered nearly $420 million at the box office, and tens of millions in paychecks for Snipes himself. More importantly, Wesley Snipes is remembered as the man who opened the door for the Marvel Empire. Because without Blade, there may never have been Iron Man, Captain America, or even the MCU as we know it today. Yet Wesley wasn't just swinging swords on screen. He proved his dramatic chops too. His performance in One Night Stand 1997 won him the Volpe Cup for Best Actor at the Venice Film Festival, one of Europe's most prestigious awards. He was also honored multiple times by the NAACP Image Awards and MTV Movie Awards, leaving his mark in both art and commerce. From a poor kid in the Bronx, Wesley Snipes rose to become a multi-million-dollar star courted by Hollywood, cheered by audiences, and praised by the press as the black action icon of the 1990s. But right at the top, the shadows began to creep in. Fame and the dark side of Hollywood. A star with a fiery temper and impossible to work with. When Blade put Wesley Snipes at the peak of fame, he became one of the most powerful black actors in Hollywood. With paychecks ranging from $7 to $10 million per film, Snipes had real power on set. But that power came with a frightening shadow, an oversized ego, and a hot temper. Rumors spread that Snipes was anything but easy to work with. Producers whispered about a difficult Wesley, while co-stars admitted he was quick to anger, stubborn, and hard to compromise with. The peak of it all was on the set of Blade Trinity 2004, where the behind-the-scenes drama was more explosive than the fight scenes on screen. Actor Patton Oswalt once recalled that Snipes was so tense, he only communicated with director David Goyer through post-it notes instead of speaking directly. Oswalt even alleged that during an argument, Snipes crossed the line with the director, a shocking detail that kept Hollywood gossip buzzing for years. Snipes denied it, saying, "Let me tell you one thing. If I had tried to strangle David Goyer, you probably wouldn't be talking to me now." Still, that story became part of the dark legend surrounding him. It didn't stop there. Crew members claimed Snipes would lock himself in his trailer and refuse to come out if he wasn't happy with the script. For some action scenes, he only performed the bare minimum, leaving the rest to stunt doubles or CGI. That suffocating atmosphere turned Blade Trinity into one of the most difficult and painful experiences of David Goyer's directing career. Ryan Reynolds, a young co-star at the time, never directly attacked Snipes, but his subtle remarks, like "some people don't like humor on set," were widely interpreted as hints at Snipes' cold, distant attitude. Yet Snipes once said that fame changes you, and it has to. If you get famous and you don't change, you're going to have a big problem. Losing opportunities. The forgotten hero, Blade Trinity, may have grossed $131 million worldwide, but critics tore it apart. And more importantly, Wesley Snipes' image after that film was severely damaged. He was no longer spoken of as an action icon, but as a troublesome actor who was hard to control. The consequences came quickly. After 2004, Snipes virtually disappeared from big-budget projects. Studios hesitated to invest because no one wanted to pour hundreds of millions into a film when the leading star might cause chaos behind the scenes. While his peers like Denzel Washington, Will Smith, and Samuel L. Jackson kept scoring hit after hit, Wesley Snipes was gradually pushed out of the game. Instead of glorious blockbusters, he appeared in smaller projects and even straight-to-DVD films. It was a steep, unstoppable fall, from box office king to a forgotten name. The Hollywood press branded Snipes a fallen star, a broken-winged celebrity, a 1990s icon now just a shadow of his former self. And the tragedy didn't stop there. Because just as his career was crumbling, another storm, far worse, was waiting. And this time it wasn't on set, but in real life. Scandal and the tax case that shook Hollywood money became a double-edged sword. Snipes' wealth dragged him into a dangerous spiral, the magical promises of tax evasion schemes. In the early 2000s, Snipes became entangled with a group known as tax protesters. people who believed in the theory that American citizens were not obligated to pay federal income tax. They leaned on something called the Section 861 argument, a flawed claim suggesting that U.S. tax law only applied to income earned outside the country, while domestic income was exempt. It sounded sweet, and Snipes, wealthy and prideful at the time, chose to believe it. He stopped filing federal tax returns from 1999 to 2004, with the estimated unpaid amount reaching tens of millions of dollars. The storm of investigation, Blade versus the IRS in 2006, the U.S. Department of Justice struck hard. Wesley Snipes, along with two associates, Eddie Ray Kahn and Douglas P. Roseisle, was officially indicted 6 counts of felony tax fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the government, and most notably 3 counts of willful failure to file federal tax returns for the years 1999, 2000, and 2001. The news spread fast, leaving Hollywood stunned. One of the first black action stars to pave the way for Marvel was now facing years in prison over tax paperwork. The American press ran with the headline, "Blade Fights the IRS. The Historic Trial, a Star at the Defendant's Table," January 2008. Ocala, Florida, a small town, suddenly became the center of national attention. Reporters and cameras crowded outside the federal courthouse. People could hardly believe it. Wesley Snipes, the action star who once dominated the box office, now sat quietly in the defendant's chair. It looked less like a trial and more like a show trial, a spectacle of justice and theater combined. Snipes' lawyers rose, trying to reshape his image. He is a victim. He was fed insane financial theories by con men. This was not intentional, it was misguided advice. The prosecution, meanwhile, dropped evidence like sledgehammers, tax returns that were never filed, letters Snipes himself had sent to the IRS invoking the Section 861 argument, and perhaps most damning, proof that he had once filed taxes properly in the past. The prosecutor concluded coldly he knew his obligations, and he chose to ignore them. Weeks of tense proceedings passed before the jury returned with a verdict. Snipes was acquitted of the most serious charges, tax fraud and conspiracy, but he was convicted on 3 counts of willful failure to file federal tax returns, each carrying a maximum of 1 year in prison. On April 24, 2008, the judge struck the gavel, 3 years in federal prison for Wesley Snipes. A shockwave exploded through the media. The New York Times headlined, "From Hollywood red carpet to federal prison." A former A-list star, once a dominant force on the big screen, was now preparing to wear the dull gray uniform of an inmate. Behind bars, from red carpet to prison. On December 9, 2010, the gates of McKean Federal Prison in Pennsylvania closed behind Wesley Snipes. No more red carpets, no more flashing cameras, only the cold clang of metal. He served 28 months. In prison, Snipes chose silence. People said he spent his time reading books, practicing martial arts, reflecting on life. No long interviews, no complaints. Only when he was released in April 2013 did Wesley Snipes utter a short but haunting line. "It's been a hell of a journey." A bitter lesson. The story of Wesley Snipes quickly entered American law schools as a case study, a warning. The Department of Justice made no secret of its intent. They wanted to send a message to the entire nation. If a multi-million-dollar star can't escape, don't think you can outsmart the IRS. And so, from a black icon who paved the way for Marvel from Hollywood, hero Wesley Snipes became a federal tax offender. A painful fall from the spotlight of fame straight into the abyss of disgrace. But prison was not the end. It was only the beginning of a real nightmare. Another door, even more merciless, opened the prison of debt. And this time, Wesley Snipes wasn't up against prosecutors, but against Bill's cold numbers, the very thing that stripped away the lavish empire he had once built. Financial crisis and shattered wealth. $1 million mansion, a dream turned burden. In his golden years, Wesley Snipes lived like royalty. In 2002, he spent $5.6 million on a luxurious estate in Alpine, New Jersey, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in America. The house spanned nearly 14,000 square feet with 8 bedrooms, a swimming pool, a gym, and a garage full of luxury cars. It was a fortress of extravagance, a declaration that the poor kid from the Bronx is now Hollywood royalty. But the lights dimmed and the palace became chains. Property taxes piled up, maintenance costs soared from garden lighting to staff salaries. Everything drained money. When the blockbuster paychecks stopped flowing, that mansion turned into a monster, devouring every last dollar he had left. He tried to hold on to the Alpine mansion, his most extravagant home. But by 2014, Snipes was forced to sell it for around $4.1 million. A big number on paper, but compared to the original $5.6 million purchase price plus years of upkeep and unpaid property taxes, it was a bitter loss. And it wasn't just real estate. Even the toys of speed he once proudly owned began to vanish. In his old garage, one of the standouts was the 1993 Acura NSX, the Japanese sports car icon, a machine Wesley adored for its speed and elegance. In Snipes' hands, it wasn't just a car, but a symbol of status power style. Yet even that too had to go sold off on the collector's market for around $90,000 to $100,000. The deadly debt. The IRS coldly confirmed that Wesley Snipes still owed about $23.5 million in taxes and penalties, a number that felt like a death sentence for his financial life. In desperation, Snipes made a shocking offer to pay just $842.61 to wipe out the debt. But the IRS flatly refused. Justice doesn't bargain. The message was crystal clear: pay it all or pay nothing. After multiple court hearings, the debt was reduced to $9.5 million, but for a star fresh out of prison, with a ruined reputation and a frozen career, it was still an impossible mountain to climb. From millionaire to debtor. Remember this: for Blade Trinity 2004 alone, Wesley pocketed around $13 million. In less than a decade, he earned nearly $40 million from films. But with one wrong move, it all vanished. His current net worth, according to financial outlets, is estimated at negative $9 million, owing more than he owns. A freefall with no breaks from million-dollar star to million-dollar debtor. The empire collapses. The mansion gone, the luxury cars gone, the money gone, and most importantly, the glory gone. From a star once earning tens of millions each year, Wesley Snipes became a prime example of collapse. The press no longer called him the immortal Blade, but instead one of Hollywood's most notorious tax offenders. People thought the name Wesley Snipes was buried forever under debt and scandal. But a vampire hunter always knows how to rise from the shadows. Wesley Snipes suddenly lit up again, making the world shout, "Blade is back, the unexpected comeback, reborn on screen, The Expendables 3, back from behind bars." In 2014, just 1 year after his release from prison, Wesley appeared in The Expendables 3 as Dr. Doc Death. Standing alongside Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, audiences applauded at the sight of Snipes returning to the big screen after nearly a decade away. With a budget of around $90–100 million, the film grossed $214.6 million worldwide. But for audiences, Wesley's comeback moment was the true highlight. Especially when Doc had a tongue-in-cheek line, "Why did they lock you up for tax evasion?" A bitter joke that turned his real-life downfall into a moment of laughter that shook theaters. A critic from Screen Rant remarked Snipes didn't get enough screen time, but every second he was on screen, the energy spiked. Proof that his star power was still alive. 7 years later, in 2021, Snipes surprised audiences again with Coming to America, the sequel to Eddie Murphy's legendary hit. This time, he played General Izzy, the flamboyant nemesis of Zamunda. Snipes described his character. "He's fearsome, funny, full of surprise dance moves, and ready to make a power play." And indeed, General Izzy was not only intimidating, but had audiences laughing out loud with his quirks, unexpected dance moves, and over-the-top expressions. The film premiered on Amazon Prime Video on March 5, 2021, drawing millions of views worldwide in its first week. It proved that Snipes wasn't just an action star. He was also a charismatic comedian fully capable of winning over a new generation of fans. And then came the moment no one expected. Marvel called the name Blade. If The Expendables 3 was just a warm-up, Deadpool and Wolverine 2024 was the real explosion. In the Marvel blockbuster led by Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, Wesley Snipes shocked fans with a surprise Blade cameo. Just a few seconds of him drawing his sword and the IMAX theater erupted. At Comic-Con 2024, where the clip was screened, Early Entertainment Weekly described the reaction as one of the loudest cheers in the history of Hall H. Ryan Reynolds recalled the moment he reached out. "I texted him, 'If you're in, we're in.' And he said yes." That was it. A simple nod, yet it gave millions of fans the chance to witness the real Blade reborn. Reynolds even jokingly but respectfully called him Marvel Daddy. It wasn't just a nostalgic blast. This cameo earned Snipes a Guinness World Record, the longest gap between two performances of the same Marvel superhero from Blade Trinity 2004 to Deadpool and Wolverine 2024. Exactly 20 years. Snipes reflected over the years I thought I had moved on. Then Ryan reached out, and here we are, a confession both humble and heartfelt. But his return sparked a fiery debate who truly owns Blade. The MCU had already cast Mahershala Ali, a two-time Oscar winner, to carry the torch in a new version. Yet that project has been plagued with trouble writers, replaced directors walking away, release dates delayed. Fans began to wonder, will Blade ever actually happen? Meanwhile, Snipes' cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine set social media ablaze. Snipes is Blade. Many argued Marvel should bring him back at least in a spin-off or through the multiverse. Snipes, however, played it wise. He declared, "I am 1000% supportive of Mahershala Ali. He's a great actor, and I'm excited to see what he does with it." He didn't try to claim the legacy, but neither did he close the door on returning. Light from the abyss. From a $23 million tax debtor from a federal inmate, Wesley Snipes rose again like a living phoenix. No longer the box office king he once was, but now an icon. A testament to resilience, to the power of standing up after the hardest fall. That breathtaking twist transformed Wesley Snipes' story into legend, from light to darkness, and then from the abyss a flare of brilliance brighter than ever. Fame can fade, fortune can vanish. But in the darkest nights of Wesley Snipes' life, the greatest question echoes: who stayed when the whole world turned away? Wesley Snipes' private life: who held his hand in the dark? His first wife, April Dubois, was the first woman to stand by his side. In the late 1980s, long before he was a multi-million-dollar star, Wesley married April Dubois. The two were together for 5 years, 1985-1990. That marriage gave him his first son, Jelani Asar Snipes, born in 1988. Jelani even appeared as a child in Spike Lee's film Mo Better Blues, 1990. But as Wesley's career soared, the marriage fell apart. In 1990, Wesley and April divorced. Jelani spent part of his time with his father, becoming the quiet child rarely seen in public. Though no longer connected to April, Wesley often said that his eldest son was a part of the fatherhood journey that helped him grow. Jelani would later choose a private life, staying away from Hollywood, unlike his father. After his first marriage, Snipes found new love. His current wife, Nikki Park, was the one who held his hand through the abyss. Nakyoung Nikki Park is a Korean painter. The two married in 2003, just 5 years before he was engulfed in the tax scandal. When Snipes was sentenced in 2008 and imprisoned from 2010 to 2013, Nikki was the one holding the line. She raised their 4 young children alone, endured public scrutiny, and waited for her husband's return. Hollywood may have turned its back, but Nikki never did. To him, she became the greatest gift of his life. After his release, Snipes admitted, "The biggest thing I got from it was learning the value of time, having been away from my family and loved ones 2.5 years." With Nikki, Wesley has 4 children, Akhenaten, Iset Alafia, and Alimayu. Along with Jelani from his first marriage, he has 5 children in total. They are the foundation that carried him through the darkest days. That family bond became even more powerful when he went to prison. In 2008, after being convicted of failing to file taxes, Wesley even asked to delay serving his sentence for one reason: "How do I explain to my little kids where their father is going?" His youngest, Alimayu, was only about 4 years old, far too young to understand that his father was about to disappear from everyday life. Inside McKean Federal Prison, there were no cameras, no lights, no red carpets. The only thing Snipes held onto was the memory of home, of Nikki Park and their children. Family photos, handwritten letters, they became his talisman, keeping him from breaking. In 2021, Snipes revealed a secret that moved fans to tears. All 5 of his children had cameos in Coming to America. He called it his way of bringing family into my work. In an interview with People, Snipes said with emotion, "What you're seeing in my joy is a reflection of them and their effect on me." Since his prison experience, he has considered the lost time with his family to be his deepest wound, and he promised never to let that happen again. But behind the image of a devoted father, a husband carried by his wife and children, Wesley Snipes still carries shadows few have ever seen. Secret scars, the kind Hollywood only dares to whisper about backstage. Secrets and scars. In 2003, as he was leaving Johannesburg, Snipes was suddenly caught holding a fake South African passport. In that moment, the international press exploded. Why would a multi-million-dollar Hollywood star need a fake passport? In the end, it was his valid U.S. passport that saved him, allowing Snipes to continue his journey. The incident faded away, but it left a crack in his image as a clean star. A scar that never truly healed a secret never fully explained. Beyond that, Wesley Snipes went through a turbulent spiritual journey. In 1978, he converted to Islam, finding in it both faith and a connection to African history. Snipes once said Islam helped him understand the history and value of black people, giving him the strength to stand tall in a Hollywood full of prejudice. But by 1988, he quietly left the faith, choosing his own path. Snipes did not return to Christianity, nor did he tie himself to any other religious denomination. After years of upheaval, he admitted family and art were the true religion of his life. Above all, that was the only belief he held on to when the lights went out and the world turned its back. After all the fame, the downfalls, and the years behind bars, Wesley Snipes today is no longer the box office king of the 1990s, but he still lives on in popular culture, perhaps even more so, thanks to his unexpected comebacks. Wesley Snipes' life today and his legacy. In 2024, with just a few seconds of a cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine, Snipes sent audiences into a frenzy. Ryan Reynolds gave him a nickname both funny and reverent, Marvel Daddy. It was recognition that it was Snipes with Blade 1998 who laid the very first stone for the Marvel empire we know today. Yet Snipes' current life isn't all light. Financially, the shadows of his tax case still loom. But if you ask, is Snipes happy, the answer is different. In recent interviews, he repeated one lesson over and over: the greatest value he learned was time with family. His 5 children, from Jelani, his eldest son, with first wife April Dubois, to the 4 younger ones with his current wife Nikki Park, have become his true inspiration, his motivation, and the source of his real joy. His joy on screen in the end is nothing more than a reflection of the love of his children and the quiet sacrifice of the woman who held his hand through his darkest hours. Wesley Snipes' legacy, therefore, isn't just at the box office. It isn't only the Blade trilogy that opened the way for Black Panther or Falcon. His legacy is also a bitter but priceless lesson: fame can lift you to the top, but it can vanish in an instant with one mistake. Still, a person can rise again, rebuild, and leave behind an immortal mark. Now Snipes lives more quietly, with fewer ambitions, but more complete in his role as a father, a husband, and an icon. Hollywood may change, and Blade may now belong to Mahershala Ali. But in the hearts of audiences, Wesley Snipes will forever be the first Blade. A trailblazing legend, a story of light and darkness, and a flame that flared again, fierce and immortal.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.